All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, we're doing a preview and prediction for the Mountain West Championship game, a rematch going down this Friday night between UNLV and Boise State. Broncos 3-point favorites, 57.5 is the total, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. Albertson Stadium from Boise. Side of this one. Getting things started with the UNLV offense on the Boise defense. Dan Mullen this year showed up to Vegas and had to retool this entire football team, including an offense. It was very successful in 2024, and they've been even better this year. They've had great balance led by running back Jaden Thomas, 944 yards and 12 touchdowns. But more importantly, Anthony Colandrea, quarterback who transferred in from Virginia, who I was a big fan of last year. I thought he made some really gutsy plays when he was at UVA, and I thought he'd be a nice little transition over here to a bit of a weaker conference for him to play in. And he's had a great season. This is a guy that puts up about 300 yards per game, has 30 total touchdowns. He can give you good plays on the ground, and he's also threw for over 3,000 yards. So this is a guy who's going to be incredibly scrappy. He's going to make some good plays for you. He's always going to keep you in games. 48% third down conversion rate, and a big reason of that is because of the play of their quarterback. I think Colandrea has nice weapons to work with. You know, they went to the portal to get some guys like Jaden Bradley. Troy O'Meary has been tremendous. He came from Arizona State. 27 receptions, almost 500 yards. He's been a big playmaker for him. Bradley, a former Pitt Panther, has been on the roster for 2 years now, but he's really stepped up. 834 yards, 51 receptions. Both are team highs this season. Day Reynolds, another one of those transfers, 431 yards and 5 scores. It's going to be the main guys there. The aforementioned Jaden Thomas, he has 35 grabs as well as a playmaker. So this is a group that has, I think, plenty of options. And when they played Boise about 2 months ago, they had a field day on offense. They ended up losing that game by double figures, but it was neck and neck for about 3/4 of that game. They had almost 500 yards of offense, mainly from running the football. And this is their bread and butter. They put up 204 yards per game on the ground. I already talked about Thomas and Colandrea. Jalen Glover is a respectable player. Kivani Lee as well. These guys both have almost 400 total yards. And again, this is a transfer-heavy team. They've come together quite well this year. Very impressed with what they've been able to put together. This is an offensive line. It's really not that great in pass protection. I think the interior is pretty strong. Center Reed Williams having a great year, and then at left guard Malik McGowan. Both tackle spots are less than stellar when they give a good amount of pressure. The thing is, they're going up against a Boise State defense who's not been great this year when it comes to rushing the passer. They were able to generate 3 sacks though against UNLV. That's the most they've had in conference play all year. But they've been a very inconsistent unit. They led the nation in sacks last year. Jaden Virgin Morgan's their best player. They had 9 tackles for loss for him, but his pressure's been inconsistent. Braxton Feely on the interior, 5.5 sacks. Malachi Williams, another one of those guys that gets involved. Marco Natarani at linebacker. It's just not been a very productive year from this pass rush. It's definitely been a little disappointing to see, and their run defense is far from perfect. 162 yards allowed per contest. Not great. I mean, they gave up 261 against UNLV in the first matchup, 277 a few weeks ago to San Diego State, and then 200 plus again against Utah State here, and a 1-point victory to get to this game just the other day. So this is a group that can definitely be taken advantage of. I do think they're competitive in the front seven, though, mainly due to a lot of those players I mentioned are pretty respectable. And these guys also played here last year. They've played some big-time football. They've played UNLV plenty of times in their careers. Boise State secondary, though, is very good. This is a team that's really progressed on this side of the ball. In the secondary, giving up only 167 yards per game. Opponents are completing only 54%. They've snagged 14 interceptions. It's a playmaking group. It's a ball hawking unit led by veteran safety Ty Benefield. I love the corners in Amari and McCoy and Jeremiah Irby. These guys have been locked solid for most of the year. Irby's been a little bit more inconsistent, but McCoy's been tremendous in coverage. He's not allowed a whole lot all season long. Over there in the slot, Jaden Mickey, one of the transfers they picked up. He's not been very good against the run. He's been respectable in coverage, though. Zion Washington, another safety, also have not really shown the brightest of skills against the run. So that's been a big problem for the secondary. I would say he's being effective against that run, but in coverage, they've been rock solid. And I think for UNLV, they're just going to look to run the football, attack those edges, get Colandrea's legs involved, maybe do a lot of +1 in the run game because he's so good and versatile with his skill set that could lead to big dividends. And I think this time they need to maybe try to possess the football a little bit more because in the last game they obviously got toasted for almost 60 points. In Colandrea, he had a season high, 87 rushing yards, Will in terms of a conference season high, he had 93 against Idaho State back in week one. But other than that, it's the only time he's ever topped 80 yards this season running the football. So I think maybe trying to force him to get 20 carries is potentially on the table for this offense. But they're versatile. They can get things done. I definitely think the Boise State's defense has some capability when it comes to slowing down this attack, though. Over to the other side of things, the Boise offense against that Rebel defense. For Boise, this is a team that, they have some question marks at quarterback. Maddox Madsen, we're not sure if he's going to play. Hasn't played in 3 weeks now. He got injured back on the 1st of November against Fresno State. They said he's getting closer. That's the status coming from the Boise program. So I think he's probably going to be maybe questionable for this game. I don't know if they need him necessarily to win this contest. Max Cutforth at quarterback really struggled over that 2-game losing streak to Fresno and San Diego. But against Colorado State and Utah State, he bounced back, coming off a career best performance, 341 yards, 2 touchdowns, made a lot of plays, took care of the football. He has pass catchers he can trust in Latrell Caples, who leads the team with 515 yards. Chris Marshall also coming back from injury. You're wondering if he's going to be a full go in this one. He's been a big-time playmaker for him downfield, about 20 yards per catch. Matt Water at tight end, he's instantly going to be one of your top targets. This is a part of this offense with their tight ends. They can be underrated. Matt Wagner had a touchdown against Utah State, for example. Career high of 64 yards for him. So I think you're going to look to get those guys involved. But most importantly, Boise State's run game. The reason they're a favorite in this game, 190 yards per game, and they absolutely smoked UNLV in that first matchup. 294 yards rushing, almost 9 yards per carry. By far the best performance they've had on the year, other than a couple performances in non-conference early on in the season. In conference play, they really struggled, though, the next couple of weeks. They almost had 300 against Colorado State as well, and I think these backs are legit. You had Dylan Riley come in this year and emerge as that guy to replace Ashton Janty, over 1,000 rushing and 10 scores. You have Sire Gaines, who's been really good with 731 rushing and 7 more touchdowns. He gets you about 5 yards per pop as well. So they have a nice duo right here. Malik Sherrod spells them as a more physical back, almost 400 yards as the number 3. All these guys are going to get involved. Riley had 200 in that game against UNLV on only 15 attempts. It was just big play after big play from this offense. There was no resistance from UNLV, and that's been their problem this year. Is this defense is not good one bit. I mean, they're toward the bottom of the country in run defense, 103rd nationally. They give up about 4 touchdowns a game. They don't create a lot of negative plays. When you look at guys that are going to be difference makers, especially up front, Tumaisi Adeli, he's one of those guys, 7.5 TFLs, 6 sacks. And then you have a linebacker, Marcel McDuffie, who's really good with 94 tackles and 4 pass breakups, 2 picks as well. So he's a guy that kind of gives you that playmaking that they need, but there's just not much resistance from this group. You talk about lackluster pass rushes, and this is one of them. They have 28 sacks on the year, and they did have 7 against Utah State, and they've had 3+ over the last 5 games. That's impressive that they're finally starting to get some notoriety from these guys. I just don't know if that's going to last against Boise State. I know these tackles for Boise have struggled this year. Cage Casey having a bit of a disappointing season. He's still been really good, collectively. Over on the right side, Dalen Mature, he's not been very good. I think the interior offensive line also has a lot of shakiness when it comes to their pass protection. So if this pass rush can continue to stay hot, then I think maybe they could make Boise vulnerable. But I think the Broncos here have a legitimate edge when it comes to being able to produce on the ground. I don't think that UNLV is going to have the run-stopping presence from their defensive front. And I think these running backs are just too good at making plays. So I think that's definitely going to be something to watch. I definitely like the secondary from UNLV. Amaris Brown was a tremendous addition in the portal. He's been great out of the slot. This is a group that gives up 246 pass yards per game. That's a fair number. It's not the best in the world. They've also played a lot better over the last month, though. But if that pass rush starting to tee off, it's allowed them to play some better free-flowing football. They did give up 264 in this first matchup and 4 touchdowns. And then the next week, the New Mexico, 400 yards and 4 scores. So they've definitely played some poor football. And I don't know if everything's going to be fixed because they haven't teed off against some weaker competition. They played Utah State, Nevada, and then Colorado State. I mean, these are some of the weaker rushing attacks in the conference. And then they played Hawaii, and I think that was an impressive performance. The Rainbow Warriors had a wide open, 70-yard touchdown on one of the first drives, and then they shut them down the rest of the game for only 163. So I definitely think that is encouraging coming into this game, that they were able to play that good of football for 4 quarters against a legit passing attack. Andrew Proudrell, Latrell Welsh, Quindarius Keys, these guys are going to have tough challenges, I think, because they've just not been that consistent this year. I definitely think there is playmaking, though, with the aforementioned Brown. Jaheim Joseph has been a great player for them from his safety spot. He's been one of their best at creating negative plays. You also have Jake Pope alongside him, who's not very fluid in coverage, so that's a guy they're going to look to attack downfield, potentially match up with those tight ends. Joseph, though, leads the team with 8 tackles for loss. He's got 3.5 sacks, a pair of forced fumbles. So, you got a nice trio of playmakers in Joseph, one of your defensive ends, and then McDuffie. So I think this is a very good team when it comes to what they've showed over the last month. I don't know if that's going to last, though, against Boise. Moving to the final thoughts and the prediction, I think the total, considering how this game went last time, was a little skewed, 57.5. That just seems off, right? And I think that's going to be your best bet. As much as I like UNLV and their balanced offense, I know Boise State has question marks at quarterback. I just don't know if this defense is going to be able to stop the run. And again, they've been good over the last month against some weaker opponents in conference. This is one of the best This is the best backfield in the Mountain West, quite frankly. And I think they're going to do their work at home. Also gives them that edge. Playmakers on defense, I think that the Broncos have more of them. So even though Boise's not been all that great this year, and UNLV's probably going to be a trendy pick, I just can't do it. I can't pick them to win. This was a shootout, neck for neck. Last 2 months ago in the last meeting, at halftime. It was a very close score, 28-24. And then Boise really put on a clinic, outscored them 28-7 in that that second half. And I think you're going to see something similar here. We're going to be trading scores, and then Boise's going to come up with some extra stops because they have more playmakers, and that's going to allow them to pull away. They've won 10 in a row dating back to the 70s. So Boise's really had the Rebels' number. The game in Vegas last year was close. The other ones weren't relatively close one bit. So I think the Broncos are going to stay hot here. They're going to win this one 38-31. They're going to cover that spread on the heels of their run game. And if they get Madsen back, that makes things even easier for this offense. Even if he doesn't play, though, I still think that these guys are going to tee off. So I'm going to take the Broncos to get this one done. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.